Hello, welcome to the Internet of Things video lectures. Today we are going to talk about the memory management of Internet of Things devices. Most of the time, writing a code for embedded platform is no different than writing a code for desktop server system. However, there are few differences if you are writing a code for Internet of Things devices. This chapter will explore some of such issues and will outline some ways to deal with the memory management problems. When we cannot have a lot of memory to play with in case of IoT devices, we need to be very careful about how to use it. Unlike general purpose computer users, embedded platform devices have very less memory to deal with. Even while you are developing software for a constrained devices, trying to debug these issues can be difficult because of low memory. Before talking about memory management issues, we should discuss about types of memory. This slide shows you different types of memory like ROM, RAM and flash memory. ROM is a permanent memory, whereas RAM is a volatile memory. Flash is a semi-permanent memory type which has the advantages of both RAM and ROM. In case of embedded systems tend to have a lot of more persistent storage than they do in RAM. So it makes sense to keep as much as data into a flash memory as possible. Obviously, the program code itself lives in a flash. You can also write a code for a compiler to help it place as much as possible of the running program into flash. If you know that the contents of the variable won't ever change, it is better to define that variable as a constant instead. This can be done by using const as keyword. This keyword lets the compiler know that the variable doesn't need to live in RAM because it will never change. Using constants this way can be a big saving if you have any large lookup tables or other big data structures such as fonts or bitmap. It's much better to get this storage out of RAM and into a flash. In an Arduino platform, there is an additional macro that lets you specify that certain strings should be stored in flash memory rather than RAM. You can do this by wrapping the string in F. That is how you can make most of your RAM. There is always a trade-off between maximizing RAM usage and its reliability. Another way to deal with this memory management problem, you can have your memory usage deterministic. That means do not allocate any memory dynamically to any of the program running on embedded platforms. When the system first boots up, it has all RAM available to store things in. But how does it decide what goes where and how to find it later? There are two general concepts to arrange this memory, that is stack and the heap. Each has its advantages and disadvantages, and computers tend to make use of both. Stack is organized just as the name implies. That means like a stack of books. Whenever new item is to be added, it will go on the top, and whenever item is to be removed, it will be strictly removed in reverse order. So that means the first thing to be removed is the last item that was placed onto the stack. The stack arrangement makes it easy for the processor to keep track of where things are and how much space is being used because it has to track only the top of the stack. As in slide, the first item in a stack is global variable, then of function A, then of function B, then C and D as they are being called by the program. So stack is always good for the items that aren't going to survive for long period of time and items that remain in constant use from the beginning to the end of the program. So the maximum memory usage on the stack depends very much on the execution path that code can take through your code. The heap in comparison enables you to allocate chunks of memory whenever you like and keep them around for as long as you like. In a heap structure, you can allocate memory randomly to the data chunks. But many a times this leads to a memory fragmentation. As an example shown on a slide, at the start of execution the heap will be empty. Object A, B and C will take up the memory. Now C is deleted and it will release the heap memory. Next object D is taking 18 bytes of memory. Now B has finished and will release 35 bytes of memory. Next object E needs 22 bytes of space. It can be accommodated right after A, leaving 13 bytes of space unused in between A and D. This leads memory fragmentation. Heap structure does not suit well to the deterministic memory usage. That's why in systems with only few kilobytes of RAM, it is recommended to use exclusively stack to store the variables. But truly speaking, it is still possible to run out of memory when just using stack. This situation is called as stack overflow. In such cases, you can write a program so that your stack can grow automatically. When it comes to writing code, performance and battery life tend to go hand in hand. What is good for one is usually good for the other. You are building such a device which is not going to be plugged into the wall all the time. Also, your device is expected to react instantaneously. So, for items which run from a battery or which are powered by a solar cell, and those which need to react instantaneously when the user pushes a button, it makes a sense to pay some attention to performance as well as power consumption. Premature optimization is the root of all evil, and that's why we need to know some of the techniques which can be applied to optimize the performance. A lot of biggest power consumption gains come from the hardware design. In particular, if your device can turn off some modules of the system when they are not in use, or you can put the entire processor into a low power sleep mode when the code is finished or waiting for something to happen, you are already optimizing the performance. Another easiest way to make your code more efficient is to move to an event-driven model rather than polling for changes. Good coding habits can make your code more efficient. When you are writing if-else constructs to choose between two possible paths of execution, try to place more likely code into the first branch. Declaring variable as constant will also help compiler to optimize the code. You can optimize the performance of device by avoiding copying memory in terms of big chunks. Moving big chunks of data from one place to another place in memory can be a real performance killer. This can be understood with an example of a protocol. In a protocol, the data is initially read into a packet buffer for the Ethernet layer. Then it is passed to the IP layer, then to the TCP layer, followed by the HTTP code, and finally to the application layer. In a naive approach, data is copied at each step. A better approach would be to have a pointer or a reference to the initial buffer passed from layer to layer instead. When copying large data, you can use systems memory routines. They are usually faster and efficient than you could. These days, when developing software for server or desktop machines, it is good to have huge array of possible libraries and frameworks available to make your coding experience easier. In the embedded platform, tasks are often a little trickier. Using available libraries while coding for your device is always a good idea. You have two options to design your device. You can use system on chips approach, or you can use microcontrollers. System on chip usually have more options to design than the microcontrollers. In subsequent slides, we are going to discuss about few libraries that are available to design your embedded code. The first library to mention is LWIP. It is also called as lightweight IP, which is a full TCP/IP stack. It runs in a low resource conditions and it requires only tens of kilobytes of RAM and around 40 KB of ROM or flash. The next one is MuIP or micro IP. It can even run on systems with only a couple of kilobytes of RAM. The next one is MuC libc, which is targeted at embedded Linux systems. It requires far fewer resources than the other libraries. The next one is Atom Threads. It is a lightweight real-time scheduler for embedded systems. You can use it when your code gets complicated enough that you need to have more than one thing happening at the same time. The BusyBox is not really a library but a collection of host of useful Unix utilities. Hunting for a bug in your code is most frustrating part of writing software. And in an embedded systems, this situation can be doubly frustrating because there tend to be fewer ways to inspect what is going on. Debugging for Internet of Things further complicates the matter. This is because customized electronic circuits as well as communication with the servers across a network. Few of the modern desktop integrated development tools called IDE have excellent support for digging into what is going on while your code is running. You can set breakpoints which stop execution when a predefined set of conditions are met, at which point you can poke around in a memory to see what it contains. You can evaluate expressions to see whether your assumptions are correct, and then you can step through the code line by line to watch what happens inside your memory. You can even modify the contents of memory or variables on the fly to influence the rest of the code execution. You can also use utilities like remote debugging, or you can get access to desktop grade debugging tools to emulate your target platform on the desktop. So, this chapter provided a comprehensive list of ways to improve your embedded coding. The next chapter to study in this unit is business models. If you are just a programmer or a maker but not an entrepreneur, you should not bother about what the business models are. But one should also know how to make money from your creation. Business is not just about money, but it is a hypothesis about what customers want, how they want it, and how an enterprise can organize to best meet those needs, how to get paid for doing so, and how to make profit out of it. Let us talk about history of business models in short. From the earliest time and for the great majority of human existence, we have gathered in tribes with common property and shared resources. Tribes used to follow the basic gift economy. Gift economies develop where those with the appropriate skills can provide their products or services like hunting, pottery, livestock, grain, childcare, etc. And they expect repayment of this obligation not immediately but with a gift of comparable worth later. This was not a return debt but a social obligation which the recipient will repay in due course. When tribes started reaching out neighboring tribes for trading animals, vegetables, or minerals, it is when trade develops with other from far off lands. A merchant might sell silks made in his village to a region where these clothes are rare and in demand in exchange of aromatic spices. But this long distance trade brought different set of problems to them, like carrying larger quantities of goods and long time traveling. Craft is a skill, but if your craft is demanded by thousands of people, it becomes very difficult to produce these many number of craft. So you can approach mass production to maximize this quantitative change. We have witnessed several business practices which had undergone huge changes due to technological change. One of the greatest technological paradigm shifts in the 20th century was the internet. One should always learn from history. Studying history against business model may reveal us how the need of new technologies have inspired new business models. History may teach you what you should do and what you should not do. The next thing that we are going to discuss is business model canvas. The slide shows one of the most popular templates for working on business model. This canvas is a Creative Commons licensed single page planner. This canvas has 9 different boxes, which is actually a checklist of different elements of business models. Also, the layout gives a meaning and context to each of the elements. At the bottom right of the canvas, there is an element revenue streams. This is most obvious element that one should not neglect. This tells you how are you going to make money. The central box have element value propositions, which gives you idea about what you will be producing, whether it is going to be a product or service or a platform. The customer segments are the people you plan to deliver the product to. The customer relationships element involves a lasting communication between the company and its most passionate customers via social media. It is about maintaining a community of your customers. Channels are the ways of reaching the customer segments, from advertising and distributing your product to delivery and after sales. The channels you choose have to be relevant to your customers. The key activities are the things that need to be done. The things need to be manufactured. The code needs to be written. Key resources involves a raw material that you need to create the product. And you will need key partners to maximize your business. One should always have an educated hypothesis about your business. That means whether it might deliver what you want from it should be known. Business models help to know these facts. A business model canvas help you to brainstorm different ideas, like what if we target the product at student instead of business, or what if we outsource our design to the agency, or what if we sell at low volume. Here are the 6 different business models that we are going to discuss further. The first model is make thing, sell thing, which is the simplest model. You can start making the things without anticipating your customers. Eventually, you will be able to sell off your things to the customers. Internet of Things devices are the digital devices. One may need regular updates to keep your device up to date with useful and current content. You can make business of this idea by providing different subscriptions to your customers for regular updates. Digital platform in mass production have simplified customization of various products. The next business model is be a key resource, which means you can build a business for component manufacturing or consultancy services. You can provide unique services, or you can build unique component, and hence you can position yourself as a key resource or a partner in somebody else's business. Like key resource business model, you can provide infrastructure to the different organizations like government organizations or any other private organizations. You can lay down a sensor networks for them, and later you can provide them services to maintain this sensor networks. To make this business fruitful, you should gain trust, you should become dispersible, you should be highly visible, should be entirely open, and you should be regularly upgradable. You can also make profit from the data that you have collected from the environment, and you can sell it off to the researchers or government. Different business model always help you to maximize your profit. The next thing to discuss is about how to get funding to your Internet of Things startup. There are 4 different ways to get fundings for your project as displayed on the slide. For a successful business, future cost and revenues are to be well planned. Fundings can be collected for hobby projects and open source projects. If your project is also your hobby, you may have no extra cost than what you would spend anyway on your free time activity. You can release all the details of your project as open source and try to get the funding from community around it. But once you have declared your project as open source, you cannot take it back as a closed source project. In an hobby project, you can seek funding from your friends and relatives also. The next way to raise funds for your project is venture capital. One should be careful about getting funding for a project from an external investor presents its own risks. The process of applying for such funding may take time. Startups often concentrate their fundraising activities into rounds, periods in which they dedicate much of their efforts into raising a target amount of money, often for a defined step in their business plan. Be aware that by accepting investment through venture capital, you are committing yourself to an exit. An exit strategy is a method by which a venture capitalist or business owner intends to get out of an investment that he or she has made. Another way to raise funds for your product business is to get funds from government. Governments typically want to promote industry and technological developments in their country, and that's why they may provide funds to you. The money provided by government have some rules. Government will always seek for the outputs, the deliverables. You can get many people to contribute to your project. That's how the crowdfunding works. The unique and great concept for a business is still important. Appealing text, slick videos, and great design may take the difference between yours and a competing project. The crowdfunders will fund to such project where they see some attention to the business model. Staying hungry and lean can be another business model. You can only spend money when it is necessary. Otherwise, you can continue your business on a low budget. You can adopt a laziness approach for lean startups. Start with only a landing page where people will see your idea. Simple page allow you to propose many projects and focus only on ones that have most feedback. Such idea may work for your business. This was all about this chapter. Thank you.